Hello everybody and welcome to this lesson from Miss Duckworth's classroom. Today we're going to be looking at how to analyse a literature extract, and this is part 1 of a part 2 series. Today we're going to be looking at an extract from A Midsummer Night's Dream. So first of all, let's consider the assessment objectives. And what do we have to consider when we're looking at the assessment objectives? Well, we have AO1, which is all about the extent to which you show that you understand the extract. So that's everything from who is involved, what's happening, why this particular section is significant to the overarching story, and it's also a reference to the text, which is your quotations. And also, it doesn't always have to be quotations, it can just be generic references, but quotations must also be in there as well. AO2 is all about the deeper meanings, the ideas and the attitudes. This is where you make your inferences and your own personal interpretations. This is also focused on writer's intention, writer's message, and relevant contextual information. And you'll note here that I say relevant. What we don't want to do is we don't want to just bolt on context just to show that we know some factual information. Contextual information should always enhance your interpretation. It should add to that. AO3 is all about how the characters, the events, the relationships, the setting is presented to you. So it's how language, structure and form create and shape meaning, and you should be able to analyse that. You must also show that you know why they are presented in this way, and this is where it links back to effect, message and intention. And finally we have AO4. AO4 is all about how you present your ideas in a coherent, relevant way, and it's the way in which you develop your personal response to the question and to the extract. So we're thinking really here about your ideas in response to the question, how you organise them in an essay structure, how you move between them, and how you present your ideas with the language that you use. So let's have a look at the question we're going to be looking at today. So the question that we have is, how does Shakespeare make the resolution so satisfying? And we've got some steps here. It's always a good idea to have a set of steps that you utilise with every single question. It's a good idea as well to keep those steps the same. So we want to make sure that the steps really become second nature. So you may use these steps, you may use the steps that you've been doing already at school with your teachers, you may use an amalgamation of both of them, but whichever you do, it is always a really good idea to know exactly how you are going to approach the extract when you sit down in the exam conditions. You've got an awful lot to think about, an awful lot to remember, an awful lot to do. So if you can reduce the amount that you're having to think by having that set amount of steps in your head that you're just naturally working through, it will just leave you much more thinking time for everything else. So I'll give you a bit of time just to read the steps. I recommend that you just pause the recording right now, have a read through them, and then I will go through them one by one. So let's have a look at number 1. Read the question, deconstruct it, highlight the key words, think about what they mean, think about what your focus is, and it's always a good idea to just write these little notes at the top of your extract, as it's going to keep you focused as you read through. You can see at the bottom that I've already kind of made a start on that. So we want to be thinking about, first of all, the resolution. That is our key word here. So it's all about the resolution, but also how does Shakespeare make it so satisfying? And you can think about synonyms for the word satisfying if you're worried about repeating yourself over and over again. It's always a good idea to just jot some little words down that you can use to replace the key word in the question. So here we know our focus is the resolution, and then we're thinking about the way in which it's presented to us as being a satisfying resolution. And that is going to need you to look back at your knowledge of the play, really think about how you're brought to this point, the different stages that you as an audience have had to come through, and why at this point it does seem like a satisfying resolution, a satisfying end point. And of course, our how here refers to method and technique. So then you're also going to be thinking about, well, how is it presented to me? How do I feel and why do I feel that way, and how has Shakespeare prompted that? The second thing we're going to do here is then read the extract. Now we've deconstructed the question, we now understand the command words, we understand what the key words are, we know what our focus is. It's a good point now to go to the extract and then think, okay, where is it from? What is happening? Who is involved? Where is it? And most importantly, why is it significant? Why is this particular extract being chosen for you? There will be something in there that the examiner feels is pertinent, it's important for you to comment on. There's something significant to the overall play. There's particular themes that are presented in there. So think to yourself, well, why is this important? Why does it stand out? Why is it interesting? And you can also consider the mood, the themes, and ultimately what is Shakespeare trying to show us? Why is he trying to show us that? What effect or impact is he trying to have on the audience? And this is the extract that we're going to be using for today. As you can see, it's from Act 4, Scene 1. So at this point, you've read the play, you've analysed the play, you've gone through different extracts in the play during your journey at school. So there's no extract really that should be shown to you that you haven't seen before. So you look at where it's from, think, right, okay, it's from the end. You would have probably got that from the question anyway because it refers to the resolution. And then you should already think, right, okay, I do know what happens here, but I'm going to give it a quick read through again, just to jot some notes down. So before we continue, I do recommend that you pause the video right now, just so you can have a bit of a read through, remind yourself what's happening, and then as I go through the steps, it will all become clearer to you. So then we go to step 3. What are the big ideas? So you want to brainstorm some keywords, some ideas that you can use. Because what really you want to do is you want to have that initial brainstorm, because that brainstorm is then going to guide you as you then start to highlight. There's no point just going through ad hoc highlighting anything that you think is nice. You really want to be focused at this point. So you keep that question in your head. Hopefully you have written down some keywords at the top of the extract. And then you're just throwing down anything that pops into your head with regards to what are these big ideas that are being reflected? What are some of the themes that are being reflected? And I'm going to show you how to do that. So this is an example of how I like to structure some of those initial ideas that come flooding through when you see the extract. Obviously mine looks quite detailed here because I haven't written it in the note form that I probably would use if I was in an exam situation, because obviously I'd like you to be able to understand it. But what is useful to you as well is to note the way in which I've broken down, the way in which I make those notes. So what you have here is the significance of the extract. Again, why is this one being chosen? What's happening? Why is it important? Then you've got what I already know about the play and the themes. Now, yes, this is a question on an extract and you are focusing just on that extract, but don't neglect everything you already know about the play, because it all feeds into this particular extract and why it is significant. What you already know about the characters and the relationships, again, as I've just said, we are looking at that extract, but what do you know about them? What do you know about their journey? What do you know about how they're presented? That also helps you to understand if there has been a development in this particular extract, if they're being introduced, if it's the beginning of the play, that's also significant. So do think about what you already know. Is it the same? Is it different? Have they developed? Have they changed? How? Why? And then you want to make a list of keywords, phrases to describe the big ideas in the extract. These may also be themes. And you can have a look at some of the ideas that I've got down here. I would again suggest that you just pause the video right here just so you can have a bit of a read. I will skim through just to pull out some of the main ones, but it is a good idea for you to just see the detail that I've included here, because it will help you to understand what's expected of you regardless of the extract that you are given. So you want to be focusing here on what is it you see in the extract. So what do you see? Is it setting? Is it character? Is it relationship? Is it theme? What is it that you're seeing? What is presented to you and how is it presented to you? What is Shakespeare trying to show you? And this, again, it links back down here to our assessment objectives, which is really, really useful, because you also know that if you're addressing the assessment objectives right here, just in this initial brainstorm, then they will be addressed and it will be pulled through when you write your essay. So first of all, let's think about the significance of the extract. In this extract, what we see, what is presented, is reconciliation and resolution of conflict. That is shown through Lysander, it's shown through Demetrius. What we also have is this idea of the return to social order. We've got the return to social order through this idea of marriage, which again links back to the context as well. But then we've also got something else in there. It's not just about the lovers and their relationship, and it's not just about how they've all been brought back together. It's also about Aegeus here. And then we have his demand for justice, and then we have this tied into Theseus' decision. And this links back to what we already know about authority, parental, patriarchal control. And so we have this idea of authority that's brought right back. In the very beginning of the play, we're introduced to Aegeus going to Theseus and asking for help. And that's brought back, so that's intertwined. So this is why also the knowledge that you have about previous acts and scenes is really, really important here. So what we already know is that we do have this undercurrent of power, patriarchal control. But also we have love and the transformative nature of love. Think about what we've just experienced in the forest. But then we also have this strong theme of confusion, the role of magic. And that's also brought back here with the resolution. And then we've got what we already know about the characters and their relationships. And most importantly, this is our list of keywords and phrases to describe what we see, the big ideas that are reflected in this extract. Now, the reason why these are so important is because these will then form the bedrock of your essay. They can be peppered throughout it. They can help you to formulate a point. They can help you to structure your analysis. They can help you with your interpretation. So these key words are extremely significant. May also be a good idea. Write them out and even highlight them when you've used them, or put a little tick next to them when you've used them. Because if you've noticed that they're reflected here, then really they should be at some point in your essay. Okay, so now we've got our notes. Obviously yours would be much quicker. They would be in note form, so you don't need full sentences. So it shouldn't take you that long to do that step, but it is an important step, so I wouldn't neglect it. I wouldn't think, oh, I don't have time for that. Definitely don't neglect that step. Now we're going to go through and we're going to highlight anything that is relevant to not only the question, but now the ideas that we've just brainstormed. And as you're doing that, you can be thinking about, okay, so I'm highlighting this. I do think it links to authority. I do think it links to love or magic and reality. And as you're highlighting it, in your head, you're just thinking, right, but what would I say about it? And that will also help you with number 6, which we'll think about in a second, but it is which ones are actually going to be useful to you. So as you go through, you are thinking, all right, I'm going for these quotations. I'm highlighting ones that I think are going to help me. But sometimes you can get stuck and you can think, right, okay, but what am I actually looking for? And on the right here, I've just given you a list. It's not an exhaustive list, but it's just somewhere for you to start and something to prompt you, because what you want to do is you want to hear as well, be addressing AO3, because we're thinking about method, we're thinking about technique, we're thinking about how things are presented to you, and the how is always the method. So I've just given you some ideas here on the right. So how is the extract organised? Can you think about how an idea progresses? Does a character or relationship change throughout the extract? Are there any methods that stand out? Can you talk about iambic pentameter? Can you talk about metaphor? Can you talk about repetition? Think about if there's any conflict or tension. Are there any contrasts? Where are the themes? If there's a theme reflected, you highlight that and you annotate which theme it is. Is there a tone? Does this tone shift? What is significant? What stands out? Which words stand out? That will help you with your language analysis. What kind of sentences have been used? What kind of imagery? Symbolism? Are there any patterns? Are there any quotations that can be grouped together, which is always a nice thing to try and do? What can you say about the different clauses within the sentences? What is suggested to you about character and action? What is the writer trying to show us? How do we react as an audience? So here are my initial highlights. I'm not going to talk you through all of them. Again, if you just want to pause the video and just have a look and for yourself, just try and think, okay, why have those ones been highlighted? And always a good idea to go back to that big ideas and the notes slide that I've just showed you and just think, okay, so this is what she's written down for the notes. These are the quotations that she's highlighted. What's the correlation there? What potentially could be said? Now, obviously, as you're probably looking at it thinking, oh, wow, I don't know how I would talk about all these quotations. You don't need to. I'm definitely not going to include all of these quotations, far too many. But this is just my initial whiz back through, thought, what's important? What links to the ideas I've just written down? So these are my initial highlights. And then once you've highlighted, you can start to formulate a plan in your head. So then you're thinking, right, okay, now I've got the ones that I like. I now need to try and think about which ones I'm going to actually use. And one of the most important questions here is, which examples are interesting enough for you to comment on? Not just that you like them, but you've got to ask yourself, what would I say? Which language device would I comment on? Which method would I comment on? Which word would I zoom in on and analyse? And if you can't answer those questions and if you can't think of anything that you would do, then perhaps that's not a quotation that you want to use. Or it might just be a supporting quotation, not a main one that you build analysis around. And at this point as well, you're also thinking, which examples are now of no use? Which ones do I now think, right, okay, no, I actually don't think I can say anything about that, but now on reflection, I don't think it links to the question, and I don't think it links to the ideas that I already have. And then once you've got your evidence, your quotations, then you're considering, okay, so now I'm going to look at my how. How is the idea that I've written down on my paper shown in this evidence? Can I see patriarchal control here? Can I see love here? Can I see a resolution here? And how? Is it a word? Is it a metaphor? Is it a pentameter? So that's when you start to really pull apart those quotations. So again, like I said, we want to really try and make sure that we're using this. If you've taken the time to write down these ideas, how can you then use this to help you? Use it to help you with deciding which quotations that you now want from that extract. Can help you with the point that you want to make. I already said some of this language might make its way into your point. And also, like I've already mentioned, really, really significant to help you with your inference, your interpretation, contextual references. So, for example, parental patriarchal control, that feeds nicely into saying something about the context. So we're not just bolting on context, we're linking it to an idea. So now what you want to do is you want to make your plan. And you can plan in any way that you feel best works for you. I recommend planning on the extract, and I will show you how to do that. Obviously, you can see here that I've got a plan in the form of a table. You could use the table if that just helps you for organisation purposes, but you won't have time to do a very, very detailed plan. So it's always best to just scribble your notes onto the extract. What I do recommend that you do is that you write out your point in full sentences, because if you've got that point and it's a full sentence, then all you're doing once you've made your annotations on the extract is you're just pulling that point across and you're pulling it into your essay. You don't really have to do any brain work there, you've already got it. Then you can use the brain work for pulling in the quotations, analysing them, interpreting them, thinking about how you're going to talk about Shakespeare's message and how you're going to talk about the context. So as you can see, I have got my 3 points. Now my 3 points, you will actually notice if you go back to the previous slide where we've got all the notes that I initially made, they come from that. So they're all born out of the initial ideas that I had. After then I looked back at the extract, highlighted some quotations. I thought, right, okay, I've got a really good understanding of the extract and its significance. I've got a good understanding of what I see. I've got some idea of the quotations that I think might be useful, but now I'm going to create the points. So I recommend that you've got like a 3-point essay. So you'll have, it's very difficult. People always ask, well, how many paragraphs is that? It's very hard to say how many paragraphs, and there isn't really a best way to do that or a one-size-fits-all, but I do recommend that you have 3 sections to your essay, and each section is driven by a point. Within that point, you may have multiple paragraphs. You may have 1 paragraph, you may have 2, and they may not all be the same. So we're going to call them sections. So sections are driven here by the points. What you do want is you want to make sure that for each point, for each section, you've got 2 to 3 quotations. You really want to have that breadth. You don't want to pin everything on one quotation. You want to show the examiner that you can go through the extract, you can create your own personal response, which is your AO4, and then you can select the relevant evidence. And you can pull evidence together to show that you can see that there is a pattern. And your evidence can be from everywhere in the extract. It doesn't all have to be together. And I don't really recommend that you pull it all from the exact same place, because you want to show that you can see how this particular idea is presented throughout the extract. So we're looking for 2 to 3 quotations. Once you've got your points, you're going to go back to the extract and you're going to number the quotations. So this is obviously point 1, point 2 and point 3. You're going to number the quotations so they correlate with your point. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add notes. Now the notes are really going to be useful for your analysis, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to just start writing your essay cold and just as you're writing it, you're having to really stop and think, right, okay, I've just put a quotation in. Now, what am I going to say about it? You write one thing, you carry on going, and then something else pops into your head. Then you've got to go back. You've got to put a little asterisk and say, right, okay, this analysis has got to go with the first thing that I said, even though now I know I'm on to my third section. So it's a really good idea to know exactly what you want to say before you get going, to make sure you can include it all at the right moment. So you add notes on your extract. It should be your analysis in terms of the question, identify any methods. You can even have a little bit down there about context, but this is why everything now can go on your extract. And also at this point, I'd just like to remind you, don't forget to check out Miss Duckworth's micro lessons, because they will also help you in creating your point. So it'll help you to understand how I got to this particular point here, helps you with the language, and just helps you to create a strong point that can really drive you, and explains the process of doing that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use our plan to come back to the extract. You can see same extract, we've got all the same highlights. We're going to use that plan to come back, and that is going to drive our final choices. So you probably already have an idea in making the points on your plan. You already probably had an idea of which quotations would drive that and which quotations would support you in that. But now what we're going to do is we're going to make our final choices. And what we want to do is we go back to our plan over here. We think about the language, we think about the meaning here, we think about the point we're trying to make, the point we're trying to prove. And then we're going to pick our 2 to 3 quotations that we really think support that. And it may be that this takes you time, in terms of you might pick a quotation for number 1, and then you might think, oh, well, actually, I think that same quotation goes for number 2. And I often have the question, can I use the same quotation at different points in the essay? And it's not advisable, because really what you want to do is you want to show that you can comment on multiple quotations, that you can use a variety of evidence. You don't really want to be reusing it. So this is also where you decide if there's a bit of a conflict for you and you've got a quotation that you think sits in 2 different places, then you've just got to spend a little bit of time thinking, okay, at what point in the essay could I really say the most about this quotation? And if I use it here, then have I got something to replace it with for the other section? So sometimes that can happen to you, and it just takes a bit of time to work that through. So as I said, we're going to number our points 1, 2 and 3, and that will really help us to then go back through, and effectively we're going to make this extract our planning sheet. And this, as you see on the screen, can be exactly how it looks for you. So you've got your plan down the side, and then what you do is you start to number the quotations that really support that plan. So we're going to start off with our number 1. And as we go through, you can see those are my final choices. And they're from different characters, they're at different points in the extract, but those are the ones that I think are the strongest. They're the ones that I really think that I can talk about, because I have asked myself that question. Can I analyse it? Can I talk about it? Is there enough? And there are quotations on here that I did go through and I thought I like it. I really think that that leads to this idea about a resolution and harmony and love. But then on reflection, I realised that there probably wasn't much I could analyse. I couldn't really pull out any techniques. I might have been able to, at a push, talk about one of the words and zoom in, but these ones really are the meatier ones, the ones that I really feel I can say a lot about. Then I have the number 2s and the number 3s. So once you've selected them and you're happy with them, then you can just quickly go around and jot down your analysis. So again, what you want here, you really want to help out yourself for when you write your essay. The more notations that you've got here, the more ideas that you've got. If you identify the methods, it just means that when you get to the essay, all you're doing is you're pulling it all together. What you don't want to do is you don't want to get to the essay writing, you've got your quotation in, and then you struggle with what to do with it. And the worst thing is you've analysed your quotation, you've moved on to section 2, and then an idea pops into your head, you're like, oh, I've got to go back. So then you've got to put a little asterisk and you've got to say this really should go for section 1. So it's much better if you just get all of your ideas out now, and then you can make sure that your personal response, your AO4, is really effective. So I'm just going to show you a short example of how you can annotate. So obviously you can see I've got full sentences here. You do not have to do that. It can be note form. So just keep it quick and easy for you, but just make sure that you do understand what it is that you want to say. So I've identified my how, which is my metaphor. I've gone for this quotation from Demetrius, my love to Hermia melted as the snow. So we've got this metaphor because obviously love cannot melt. And then I've just put some little notes to remind me of exactly what it is I want to say about it when I get to the essay. Now you will do this for all of them. So you will quickly go through, jot down the method, jot down what you want to say. And also, as you're doing that, you're thinking, how does this support my point? So you're also thinking, are there any key words that I can pull in or any key words that I can address? So now what you have is, you have what you want to say with regards to why this extract is significant. You have your evidence in the form of the quotations that you've highlighted and annotated. You've got the techniques, the methods, the language choices that you can comment on again through your annotation. That also is your notes on your analysis, and you've got a very clear and structured plan that answers the question. You can now use this to write up your answer in detail. So don't forget, for this question, you can follow the DREAM technique. So first of all, we've deconstructed the question, read, understand, highlight the extract, analyse your final choices, eliminate any irrelevant or weak choices that you think, oh, now I don't think it matches the question or my point, or I also at this point really like it, but I don't know what I would say, I don't know how I would analyse it. Eliminate it, and you make a plan. So thank you very much for taking part in this lesson. Do look out for the next one, which is how to write up your answer.